All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. So I'm going to do a quick intro, a few minutes. Then Sal and Eric are going to chat up here for 30 minutes, and then we'll take questions. If you're joining from the live stream, thanks very much. You can ask questions on the Google Plus events page. And then Eric and Sal will take them live. So not often that I get to introduce two people that don't need introductions, so this will be quite brief. Eric Schmidt is the executive chairman of Google, and perhaps more importantly for today, he's on the board of Khan Academy. Sal Khan is the founder of Khan Academy and its executive director. And me, let's talk about me. Actually, let's talk about Google.org. Next slide. So Google.org is the philanthropic arm of Google. I work for it. My name is Chris. I've been with Google.org since the inception. Click, please. Thanks. We donate over $100 million a year. We're the major grant-giving arm of Google, investing in nonprofits around the world. A couple of clicks, please. And one more. Next slide. If we have a clicker, I'll use it. One more click. So, Khan and Google.org. Let me tell you about my favorite product at Google. It's the time machine. And before you get on social media talking about how Googler just announced Google X's latest project in a very career-limiting move, the time machine is simply Gmail. Gmail for me is fun because you can go back in your life and see when did you first start talking about something. In this case, Khan Academy, no surprise. Next slide. In 2008, perfect. I was having lunch with Herman, a friend of mine at Google. We eat lunch a lot at Google. And we were talking about YouTube and how cool it would be if someone would take advantage of it to disrupt education and put videos online and make them accessible to everybody around the world and in every language and every subject. How neat would that be? And maybe we should just do it. Well, now I have a clicker and it's not my slides. So Herman emails me a few hours later and he says, it exists. KhanAcademy.org, you can see I'm not lying, 2008. It's a long time ago. And I went to the Khan Academy site and I said, yes, very cool, let's get together with Sal. I don't think he's seen this because his eyes are wide open. Jaws dropped. And I pasted in his bio on the Khan Academy page, which I got a chuckle out of this morning because it said he's currently working at a hedge fund as a portfolio manager. Herman wrote back, and in typical Googler fashion, he said, let's get together, let's share ideas, see if we can help, find a way to work together, and the best part of it, expand his idea and work even further. Very quite arrogant of us, actually. So we didn't do that, but we did write Sal a big check. So what I do in part at Google and Google.org is do our education giving. We wrote Sal his first check out of, not the garage, because he couldn't afford to work out of a garage like Larry and Sergey. He worked out of his walk-in closet. We wrote them a $2 million check in 2010 and became their first major funder, which we're very proud of. And we've gone on to support other nonprofits working in education around the world, Khan Academy, Raspberry Pi in the UK, one of my favorites, Equal Opportunity Schools, working in Seattle and doing some great equity work in our schools, and code.org. So, without further ado, Sal and Eric.
Thank you very, very much. And you know, the early decision to invest in Khan, I think, has really, really helped them a lot. I've enjoyed working with Sal for a long time, and it's easier if I just say my bias right up front. I think that 50 years from now, people will say you are the most effective and greatest educator on the planet. If you don't do that, I'll be disappointed. He has a special gift, and you'll hear that today. But starting with the news of the day, we have something to announce. Let's talk about what we're doing.
Yeah, and as was introduced, and it's funny, even this like actual physical location, we saw the email thread that eventually, and I didn't view it at all arrogant for you guys to reach out to me and ask if there are ways that you could help me get out of my walk-in closet. And it was actually the conference room. We have some Khan Academy team members with us right here, and I was just pointing out that that conference room right on the other side of that wall was where I first walked in with kind of my laminated slides with what we could do with more resources. So it's fun to be here.
We use digital tools now.
We do, but yeah, there's certain reliability and anyway. But the stain resistance. But yeah, the big thing we're doing, very, very exciting. So we, at Khan Academy, obviously we've been around for a little bit now. A lot of people associate us with the videos. A lot of what we've been investing in the last 4 years is a personalized exercise platform. Students can learn at their own pace, grade levels aligned. And we've been thinking, is there a way that we can get students to use us as I guess you could say a mindset altering tool. And a lot of this is based on the work of Carol Dweck at Stanford. How many of y'all familiar with the idea of growth mindset? A few? Okay. It's this idea that, for those of y'all who didn't raise your hand, is people tend to, if broadly speaking, you can have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. Growth mindset means that or a fixed mindset means that you think you're either born smart or not. You're either born good at math or not. You're either born good at basketball or you're not. While a growth mindset believes, well, no, if I persist at something and if I push myself out of my comfort zone and I try and I fail and I try again, I can actually get good at anything. And that by itself is interesting, and they've shown that disproportionately people who do well in life have a growth mindset. But the exciting thing is they've shown that you can actually intervene. You can actually change people's mindsets. They call them growth mindset interventions. So we started this campaign about 6-7 months ago called this You Can Learn Anything campaign, which is we created some even PSA spots which were about promoting people's growth mindsets. And we said, can we create a program where people can apply this growth mindset? And,
by the way, was this your idea, or did this come out of teachers and students who were using Khan?
It came from. So the growth mindset work, this actually, I remember Angela Duckworth, who's a researcher at University of Pennsylvania, she kind of accosted me at a conference once, and I didn't know about her work, and I didn't know who she was. I thought she was a professor at University of Pennsylvania, and she's like, no, there's this work I do on grit and mindset and perseverance, and it's exactly
and there's a whole movement now. People understand that a lot of success is related to actual steadfastness, grit, whatever you want to do, and there's a fair amount of academic research that shows it as well, and that this stuff can be taught.
Exactly. And so I remember, so that was the first time I had interacted with her. I think simultaneously we discovered that some folks on our analytics team were working with Carol Dweck's group at Stanford to actually run some very large-scale experiments on Khan Academy around growth mindset interventions. So yeah, I think there's probably 4 or 5 different directions that had just emerged as something we started to really care about. And so what we've launched in the last few weeks, and Google is the primary sponsor for this, is we're calling it LearnStorm. And it is I guess you could, I'll call it a math competition, but I'll then give a bunch of caveats, because the intent is not to be the traditional math competition that I'm guessing a lot of the folks in this room used to participate in, which is 2 or 3 kids in the school represent and tackle a bunch of hard problems. We're going to have that aspect, so the kids who are racing ahead, they'll be recognized, but we're also going to recognize students around grit and perseverance and mindset. And what's exciting about traditional, if you give someone a test, you can't measure their grit or perseverance, but on Khan Academy we can.
So how do you decide grit?
So we're keeping the actual algorithm secret, so it does not get gamed. But I can give you the broad brush strokes. You can imagine someone with grit is someone who is doing a lot of work but not getting everything right. Okay. They're working on stuff where they are getting things wrong. They're right at their learning edge. They're stepping out of their comfort zone. So
they keep trying.
And they keep trying. So the inputs into the algorithm, you could imagine, are how much time you spend total, how much you progress, but also some degree of how are you getting things wrong? Are you challenging yourself relative to your ability level? So we're calling that our hustle leaderboard, or grit or hustle. And so we're starting a pilot this year in the Bay Area with y'all's help, and we just this last.
By the way, we have a huge number of schools who have already signed up.
Yes, there are 50% of the schools in the Bay Area already have at least one student in LearnStorm. We already have 35,000 students total. So it's actually already, I think, 2% of the kids in the Bay Area, and we're only a few weeks into it of 3 months. But yeah.
And you want more to sign up?
We want
everybody to sign up.
We want everyone to sign up. Our goal, which it seems like we're hitting right now, is at least 30% of the students are from schools with a majority free and reduced lunch. So we want to make sure that's definitely reaching everyone, especially the folks that need it most. Yeah, but we just launched, and what we're announcing today is that we have our first This is not the final results. We're only 1 week into it. So what we're going to be doing is...
This is Google. We do everything immediately.
We have the finals, which we're co-hosting with y'all, is going to be in 3 months. But every week we're publishing these leaderboards. And today we can publish the first leaderboards, which we actually have.
And what did it say?
Well, we could...
Did I win? We
could. Are you in it? You have a secret alias as a third grader in a... So this is it, and this is neat because this is the first time that anyone is seeing this, and we're going to be emailing.
By the way, isn't that a great phrase? You can learn anything.
You can learn anything.
Isn't it a great motto?
Yeah, we have a. Well, yeah, it's very. So this right over here is the individual.
So hustle is a different place than mastery.
Yes. So mastery is literally a raw count of which individual. So this is the individual leaderboards. This is the students who have mastery is just raw count of the masteries they've gotten. Hustle is that magic heuristic that we talked about that it involves how much grit, perseverance you're putting in. You can see there's a student at St.
Well, in Hustle, you've got Fairfield, you've got Vallejo.
Yep.
You got some interesting results right there.
And especially if we go to schools, which is actually start looking at the schools. And so you can see there, the top school on the hustle dimension right now is a school, that's 49ers Academy, that's in East Palo Alto. They're 90% free and reduced lunch.
Wow.
We see over there Oakland Unity School, that's another school in Oakland that we're actually familiar with. We actually hadn't worked formally with 49ers Academy before, so it's super exciting to see the schools. And this is Bay Area wide. This is 244 cities in the Bay Area. I didn't realize there were that many cities in the Bay Area.
Just tried governance of the Bay Area.
Yes. So this is a big deal to even be in the top 10 of this.
That's phenomenal.
We're talking about on the order of close to 1,000 schools. And then since we're in Mountain View, we can look at the Mountain View leaderboards. We have the mayor of Mountain View here, who also owns the Baskin-Robbins on the corner of El Camino and Miramonte, which I
in case the students wish to visit Baskin-Robbins after school.
I just learned that my daughter is so she's literally addicted. Like, I can't pass that Baskin-Robbins without it being a family crisis. So I was impressed for both of his titles. But yes. So you see in Mountain View, there's some neat things here. These are all the local schools, and it actually includes both the public and the private schools there. And then maybe the most fun of all is we can look at cities, and we can see how the cities are comparing to each other. And we actually have two mayors here. We have Jan, she's the mayor of Los Altos, and we see Los Altos total mastery doing quite good. It's only week 1 though. Mountain View I think will come back, and then total hustle number 7. Once again, these are. To even be in the top 10 here is a very big deal. This is out of 244 cities in the Bay Area. So we're hoping that what this does is this kind of creates a culture in the broader Bay Area around, hey, let's city versus city, school versus school, kind of a very positive celebration of people's growth mindsets.
So what will happen is there's eventually a final event here. What's the final event going to look like?
So the students are going to be working hopefully a lot over the next few weeks. We're going to give these weekly leaderboards. We're also going to be giving monthly challenges to the different to different schools, and these are things that they could be doing in the classroom. It could be hands-on projects, puzzles, whatever else. And then the students, schools, and that are doing well. Actually, all of the schools will be represented at the finals that reach a certain threshold, but the students that have done well on both the hustle and the mastery things will come here, and then we'll have kind of a celebration together. And
It'll be seriously wild.
Yes,
excellent.
It will be. It'll be a bunch of crazy math students.
So let's talk a little bit about, sort of your arc. And I think people very well know the story that you got into this sort of by accident. Mm-hmm. You were busy earning a proper living in proper things. And after an opportunity to educate a relative, you sort of seized upon this notion of using the world's most popular video distribution system, also known as YouTube, to educate the world. So for years, and we of course participated with helping you doing this, and so we're happy to have done that. You sort of began doing these videos, and they are short videos, and you are often in these videos, right? You've learned like every conceivable high school topic
Yes.
to the point where you can teach every single one of them, right? It's a very sort of extraordinary achievement on a human being. And so you become sort of the teacher of high school, if you will. You can sort of do this in your sleep, and you probably dream it. So you did that for a while, and you've gotten now to the point where an enormous number of people globally use these things to supplement their knowledge. They're in trouble in some subject of this, math, science, physics, English, what have you, and they come to Khan Academy for assistance, if you will. But then you started working on programmatic things, right? A most recent example is that Khan has been selected as the preparatory tools and technology for the 2016 SAT, which is complicated and interesting. Turns out that Khan is one of the best ways to prepare for the Common Core testing and standards that are now in 43 states. Take us through this sort of transformation from the videos, which I think people are pretty familiar with, to this other model, and what does it sort of look like going forward?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, the videos are what kind of how we got started. It's what got us on people's radar, apparently, back in 2007, 2008. And in 2010, when folks like Google, literally in the conference room on the other side of this wall, came and said, what would you do with more resources? My pitch was, and this is, I had set it up as a not-for-profit the year before, and when the IRS asks you, there's part of the form, it says mission, colon, and a line and a half, I filled out a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. And
that's a Google level aspiration.
There you go. Yes.
Repeat it. A free first-class education.
Free world-class education for anyone, anywhere.
For everyone, anyone, everywhere.
Anyone, anywhere.
That includes everyone in the entire world.
Yes.
You're sure?
That's the goal.
Okay. And how many languages do you support?
We're not there yet. It's
not enough.
As I say, we're not. We're going to be working on it. We're not going to.
One of the things that I know is that we've had phenomenal donors who have been helping fund the translation of the videos and the non-video technology into other languages, right, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And we already actually are making pretty good headway, and Yin, who's our head of international, is here, and she's going to be driving it even further. But we have, we have a fully Spanish Khan Academy. We have a fully Brazilian Portuguese Khan Academy. We have partners in France. We have partners in Turkey. So the goal is, hopefully, in the next 5-10 years, we have significant presences
and the good news is that's a scalable problem once the content is there.
Yeah,
coming back to the focus, though, at some point you decided to do more than just videos.
Yeah.
What happened?
So the pitch was, well, look, in order to actually learn, to get an education, it can't just be 5-10 minute videos. It's got to be real interactivity. And there's always been this thesis, and this goes back to when I was tutoring my cousins, which was really the kind of the start of Khan Academy.
How is your cousin doing now?
I tell her
she's grown up.
She's grown up. I tell her there's a lot riding on her future. So she's actually the first 3 cousins. They're doing just fine. I'm obviously very invested in their success. But Nadia is she just graduated from Sarah Lawrence last year, and she's working as a researcher now, and I think she wants to go to med school.
So she's a proper adult. She managed to make it through Khan Academy and grow up.
Yes, and she's fulfilled all her South Asian stereotypes just perfectly. And her younger brother is he's a sophomore at MIT, and his younger brother's going to be a freshman there next year. So they're doing good.
So what happens is you get through this, you're seeing all these wins, and what was the decision to do something different?
Well, it was that I saw that they all, even the ones that were they thought they were good students, A-, B+ students, they still ended up hitting walls when they got into algebra class or trigonometry or calculus, and it was never because they often thought it was because I'm not good at math or math is hard. But when I sat down with them, it was pretty clear that they were having trouble in calculus because they didn't master their algebra. Or they're having trouble in algebra because they were a little foggy on exponents or whatever else. And so the first version of Khan Academy, my background's in software, it had nothing to do with videos. This was in 2005 when I got the domain name. It was just literally an exercise platform that would allow my cousins to fill in their gaps and then guide them ahead. And this was something that I had hacked together on. And the videos were just something to complement those things. And so when y'all reached out on what we would do, I said, well, we'll get a real team to work on this software platform where students can go, remediate their gaps, it understands where they are, and then it can guide them up the appropriate, to the appropriate skill level, and keep them in their kind of, one step out of their comfort zone, their kind of zone of proximal development, kind of what we want for these students who are winning the hustle leaderboard.
So I was struck, one of the things that you did a couple of years ago is you started to look at the problem of math problems. And everyone struggled with math problems. And you actually back correlated which problems would produce the quickest learning. And I thought that was the first example of machine intelligence that everyone could relate to, because nobody likes some of these hard and impossible problems that nobody can actually answer. So what happened with that? Did that work? Is that now a part of my math experience as a 12-year-old?
Yeah, so, and we have members of our analytics team who are, right, and what they're constantly doing, I mean, this is the thing, I mean, everyone here is familiar with the notion of A/B testing. In a traditional world, A/B testing is literally just about how do we get more time on site, prevent the bounce rate, or
A/B testing is taught in schools but never applied to schools.
Is it taught in schools?
Yeah. It's called statistics.
Oh, statistics. That's right. That's right.
You forgot.
Yes. No, that's right.
They actually teach. There are thousands of people who
Yes.
teach testing A versus B, but
No, you're
no one in
right.
education
Yes.
ever actually does that.
That's right. Yes. There's a whole movement.
That's how the new math became the old math, which became the new math again.
That's right.
You're too young to remember that.
No, I'm older than you think. But so yeah, they're constantly running these experiments on if we give students questions that are harder, that what is the accuracy that kind of optimizes students' engagement or their ability to get to some learning stage further on. We're measuring correlations between what we call mission completion. You mentioned we literally have. And we're working with the authors of the Common Core on this, on making sure that our collection of 200,000 exercises are actually representative of what the Common Core should be.
And what is the alignment? I mean, are you now training to the test, as the critics say?
So what was good about it, I was actually skeptical of the Common Core 3 years ago. And to a large degree, regardless of the standard, what matters more is how it's actually implemented. You could do a very bad implementation of any standard, and you can also do a very good implementation of most standards. But when we actually started to look at what the Common Core was saying, it really is just good math. It is based off of, I know it's a political hot potato, but it really is based off of a lot of the good ideas that come out of Singapore. Have fewer concepts, but teach them really well and have really good conceptual underpinning on them. So that's just the basic gist of the Common Core. I mean, there's some details, but we looked at it, and obviously that 43 states were adopting. It was like, this is an opportunity. We're at least national, if not international. Let us focus around this. So we did a very deep investment starting almost 3 years ago on making sure that our exercises, our videos also, but especially our exercises, aligned with the Common Core. But to your point, then measuring that, hey, if you get to what we would call full mastery of the 8th grade mission on Khan Academy, what does that mean if you were to go take a standardized test? And we now see that you're very likely to rock that standardized test. And that's part of the LearnStorm pitch that we make to schools, because schools have a million things to do, but we can say, hey, this is something you care about, and it's fun.
A couple more questions about this, then we'll move on to audience questions. But let's talk a little bit about the SAT. SAT is fighting ACT. There's a new leader. You all did a deal to do essentially to be one of the test prep, I guess, for the. Why did you do that? What is the relationship of the Khan Academy mission and test prep to SATs?
Yeah, well, the College Board reached out to us. They're launching a new SAT in 2016, and this new SAT is being designed to be more aligned with what students actually learn in school. And part of this thing, and this College Board's been around for 100 years, is for the first time that they're, with their new leadership, publicly calling out that this has been unequal, that middle class, upper middle class kids have access to Kaplan, Princeton Review, tutors, whatever else. And so they wanted to do something to help level the playing field. And we didn't know. They had been quietly looking at all of our work on the Common Core and saying, well, this thing that was kind of this, startup-y thing a couple of years ago, they're doing serious work now based in real science. And so they reached out and said, we would like you guys to actually be the official, exclusive provider of free test prep for the new SAT. And the whole point here is, test prep is...
So it's important that it's free for everyone who's going to take the SAT,
it's
which
free,
is presumably everybody in the U.S.
I mean, there's two. It's free and best in class is the goal, because no one else before had direct access to the College Board. We're vetting items together. And this, once again, it's not going to be just your classic test prep where it's like, hey, when in doubt, pick C, or this is what you, test-taking strategies. The SAT, the goal is to measure college readiness, and the best way to do well on that is to just be college ready. And so we are, a big part of this, and this is why they wanted to work with us, is that we actually want to teach people the mathematics.
Yes.
Or the reading or the writing or whatever else.
Now, another thing that you've been doing is, and you've been doing this with a number of educators, is you've been trying to look at the totality of the educational experience. Mm-hmm. So, a simple question is, people get so mad at the school system, they say, I want to sort of homeschool my child, and I want them just to use Khan Academy. And there are some things that you don't learn by sitting in front of a computer all day, mm-hmm. right? As much as we would like to not believe that as a child and growing up into a proper citizen. So you've actually done some partnerships in various states. You want to take through some of your lab ideas. Give me a model of how the ideal school will look like in 5 or 10 years. What will the teacher do? Because it's pretty clear the teachers matter even more than they used to, and they've always mattered. Yeah. And it's pretty important that Khan Academy matters a lot to them.
Yep. So if you take education as this full spectrum of things, this end of education, you could say this is like your history facts and your multiplication tables. And as you get further and further, you get into more and more open-ended things. Out here might be entrepreneurship, or your growth mindset, or your ability to write a novel, whatever it might be. The traditional school system has been very focused right around at this range. And because they've been doing it in, for lack of a word, this Prussian factory model, where even if you have gaps in a basic concept, we're going to move you on to the next more advanced one because the assembly line is just moving at that pace, and we're going to grade you, and when we identify gaps, we'll keep pushing you along, and at some point you're going to hit a wall like my cousins did. So even on that, it's not really personalizing and making sure that students learn it as well as they could. And it's the model more than any individual's fault. And so the view is if things like Khan Academy can tackle a lot of this, but do it in a personalized way so students can build their foundations, progress at their own pace, and actually even a little bit of this stuff. We have a programming platform where students can create things, have peer review, make games, very creative. It's not to replace what was going on here. It allows the teachers to move up here. And so now the teachers can spend a lot of time mentoring students, intervening in their lives, having that one-on-one time, being their coach. Frankly, the type of thing that I was doing with Nadia and Arman and Ali was taking interest in what they were doing and motivating them.
Well, we forget that schools are also where an awful lot of social issues get resolved, and people bring problems from home to school and on and on and on. I mean, you talked a lot about in your first book the notion of inverting the classroom. Yep. So are we still on an inverting the classroom model? And how what would it look like?
And just for the inverting the classroom idea, and this wasn't my idea, this was other teachers had emailed me back in as early as 2007, was like, hey, you've given videos on some things. We don't have to waste class time giving lecture information delivery anymore. We'll use class time to actually interact and do problem solving, and then kids can get videos if they need it at their own time and pace. In my mind, that's been distilled further, is that when humans get together, the general principle is leverage the humans. And so make them interact with each other, make them do projects, make them have Socratic dialogue, and then they can do other things at their own time and own pace. It might be watching videos, it might be doing exercises, and it might be even doing some of their projects or programming. But if they're in a room together, make them interact with each other. So the school of the future, and as you mentioned, we're working with a bunch of schools in this area and around the country that are moving in this direction, some of them very aggressively. Yes, students spend 2-3 hours a day on core skills, the kind of stuff that used to be 8 hours of the day, but they're learning in a personalized way and hopefully much more effectively. But then the rest of the day is open-ended. They're working on projects, they're having Socratic dialogue, they're doing peer-to-peer, whatever else.
If you're wildly successful here in the Bay Area and in other places, you might get 0.5% or 1% of the schools to start this. How do you get to scale, given the way in which education is run in America? Heavily unionized, heavily regulated, department of policy, all sorts of rules. The textbooks take 5 years to get approved, on and on and on. How do you break that? Is your strategy just to be an insurgent and get these ideas in and then hope for the best?
There's a little bit of that. There's the general, and no one has I don't have the crystal ball. I don't know the exact right answer here. I think we have several kind of angles of approaching this problem. One is continue to do what we're doing, have a lot of reach. Last year, our estimates are that 20 to 30% of all U.S. students at least used Khan Academy once in the year. So the reach was there, and obviously we're working on ways to getting them to use it even more. So there's one model where, look, you just have a large percentage of the students in a country and eventually the world using this thing. That creates change, and we see that happening. That a teacher might use it in their classroom because a parent or student or a lot of their students are using it. That's one way to approach it. The partnership with the College Board is a big deal for us, hopefully a big deal for them as well, because it completes a picture. To a large degree, there's probably parents here who homeschool, and your child, the grades, it's from your mom or dad. The colleges aren't going to take it too seriously, but if your child does well on the AP tests, which are administered by the College Board, and does well on the SAT, and has a portfolio of good projects that they worked on and can write well, they can get into Harvard.
You actually told me the story about the AP tests are a relatively new idea. They were invented roughly 50 years ago. They are
actually
in some elite schools, and they became sort of a new level of expectation across the entire.
They're actually probably the best example of, in the last 40 years, actually a transformation happening. 40 years ago, Phillips Andover, elite of the elite schools. They said, hey, our seniors are taking calculus at the same level as they would if they were at Yale or Harvard. Let's talk to Yale or Harvard, because they could, and let's make sure our students get credit for it. And then Exeter and Choate and Deerfield and all these very elite schools says, oh, we're just as good. And because education is an aspirational thing, it is kind of like, oh, the movie star is wearing those jeans, I want to wear it too. That it eventually, now there's not the great majority of schools in the country say, I want to offer AP classes as well.
Final question involving programming. About a year and a half ago, you brought out some initial tools for teaching programming. Obviously that's your own background and obviously ours here in the room. How is that going? What's your vision of that? I mean, we care a lot about producing great programmers.
Yeah, no, that's close to our heart. I mean, even, I even think of this for my own children. I mean, there's reading, writing, arithmetic, and the fourth R is programming. And so
okay, can we just review that high school mastery again?
Yeah, there's an R in it, but so we take this very seriously, and the way we did programming, if you take CS 101 at almost any university, they start with, this is a variable, this is a loop, this is a conditional. I was like, that's not how we learn to program. Most of us learn to program. I want to create a game. I want to create a screensaver. I want to create something I can show my friends. And so John Ressig, who's one of the architects of jQuery, on our team, we kind of gave him some space to think of this in a very open-ended way. And we came up with a model, and we piloted it at some schools in Los Altos with 5th graders, both genders, to make sure that it's equally appealing. And actually, our CS platform is 50-50 male-female. And but the whole point of it is you create things. And so you have a coding window, and then you're doing it in JavaScript, and then you have your canvas. But then you share it on your profile. You get peer-to-peer feedback. You can browse other people's games. You can spin off of games. So it's something that we take very seriously, because we think it's. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We've actually already hired 2 people based on what their portfolios were on our programming platform. So it could be an interesting recruitment strategy.
Excellent. Let's move to our audience questions, et cetera. We have some Dory questions, which are our internal board. And let me just read the first one while there's a microphone coming. If you would come up here. From your perspective, what could or should Google be doing in education that we currently are not? And before you answer that question, make sure everybody knows that we have a very successful program around something called Chromebooks. Many students now will get the Chromebook. They'll check it into the classroom. They log in. When they're done, they check it back out into the school. It's essentially a Chrome on hardware. It's the #1 most successful computer in education. We've also introduced in the last year a product called Google Classroom, which is targeted. The customer of Google Classroom is essentially a teacher who's doing lesson plans, wants to sort of work digitally with the students, and so forth and so on. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I mean, Google's already doing a lot, and even some of the things that y'all aren't explicitly doing for education, like things like Project Loon and whatever else, I think have huge implications.
Well, connectivity is huge.
Connectivity is, when we think about the world in 10 years, we see ourselves, we're going to create a lot of content, and hopefully that motivates more people, and it'll be hopefully on mobile devices and whatever else.
Well, they will only be on mobile devices.
Exactly.
And in a decade, the vast majority of your global customers will be on smartphones run by Android.
We don't disagree. And so that's actually a huge thing, and that's the kind of thing that Google can tackle that we would never be able to tackle, and all of the other things you mentioned. And I would say beyond that is, a lot of what we've done together and starting to do together is figure out programmatic ways to build awareness, to build energy around this very important direction, whether it's narrow if we just think only about computer programming, which both groups are interested in, but also broader spectrum around education generally.
Well, I've always thought that education was sort of the last industry to get automated. And now with digital connectivity, everybody being connected, it should be possible to get the like-minded people to start building these interesting and powerful platforms, which include machine intelligence, various forms of testing, and A/B testing. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Lizzie. Before I came to Google, I was a teacher, and
Who did you teach?
I taught middle school math, so 8th and 9th graders in Boston. And one of the things that I noticed was that despite access to resources, so many of these kids had smartphones. So I just wanted to follow up on something that you just started talking about, but specific to LearnStorm and the sort of mobile accessibility there, and how soon students can start doing this on their phones.
The simple answer is hopefully within the year. Matt, who's driving a lot of our mobile stuff, is there, so you all can talk to him. But yes, we have big plans. I mean, the writing's on the wall, obviously, and so we have big plans in this upcoming year to, yeah.
Well, and there's an iPad product already.
Yeah, we just launched.
Working on smartphone technologies in the more popular of the operating systems.
That is right. So, but I encourage y'all to sample the one that is out there. We just launched. So we had an old iPad app that was just a rich video viewing, but we just launched one a few weeks ago where students can enter their answer with freehand and all that.
We'll do that. Let's question him together until we get the right answer.
All right. Get serious.
Is there something interesting that you can do on a smartphone from an education perspective that you can't do on
Well, we
a
could
computer?
surround them. From a smartphone, there's all sorts of things that I mean, they could take the ideas. They could take a picture of a problem, and then they could have examples. This is actually screenshots of the iPad app, which is in the not too long future will also be on the more popular platform. But yeah, I mean, you can imagine. I mean, you have a camera, you have a way that they can interface on touch, so you know where they are potentially, and so
Right, you have location. And they can also move it around. Right?
They could also move it
Three-dimensional
around. So
imaging.
we're just scratching the surface on what's possible on mobile, and we're just starting to open our minds, frankly, to what it is.
It would be amazing if also just shifting some of the time that those students are spending on their mobile phones from less productive activities too.
What, like texting?
No, like bullying.
Oh,
I'm leaving now.
yes.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Next question.
Hi, I'm Tony from Android Test. My question is around your platform that supports like using Java to code and basically show what they code on the right. I'm aware of a different language called Scratch, which enables pretty much similar things, but it's more block-based and potentially easier for younger kids to interact with it. I'm wondering what's the rationale behind choosing Java versus extending on Scratch?
Yeah, no, and we're very close to the Scratch folks, Mitch Resnick at the MIT Media Lab. And when we did this, Scratch already was there, and we're like, Scratch is actually doing a great job at block-based programming. But what we felt, we kind of introspected again, like when we all first learned to program, you actually don't see a lot of folks. Like a lot of folks, they will do the, when I was a kid, you had what was the one with the turtle and the logo. You had things like that, which, a very basic form of programming. But you don't see a lot of people make the jump from that, or even the block-based, to what, for lack of a word, real syntactic programming. And so we thought it was important, not that that isn't important, but that's kind of step one. But to step two is to really cross that gap where students are saying, actually, the syntactic one isn't that bad. And that's actually what most of the programming that you will do in the world today actually looks like. But with that said, we actually have, we have an overlay on the JavaScript using Blockly, that it is also block-based. But, our thesis was, it is important for the kids to actually get used to syntactic.
So a Google employee, in fact, did a lot of the work to take Scratch and put it onto a proper web platform.
Yeah.
He's a real hero inside the company. And Google has been funding a lot of these sort of Scratch programs in schools, and they're targeted at 10, 11, 12-year-olds, and they really work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I was wondering if you have like data on how young of an age could they start interacting with actual Java and not like be intimidated by it?
Yeah, I don't have any formal data on it. I mean, it would actually be interesting for us to study. I mean, we've definitely, we kind of designed it almost at the young age for like, third, fourth graders. But we've seen even younger students, and there's some neat things. I mean, it seems like you're familiar with it, where if you change a color, it changes in real time. It's based on some of the work that Britt Victor did around kind of instant. You don't have to rerun your program; it just kind of changes in real time. But yeah, those are good points. And I mean, what's exciting is that there's kind of this kind of Cambrian explosion in new platforms where kids can learn. So it's pretty neat.
Thank you very much.
Let me ask the next internal question. Some or much of Khan Academy's content is structured around a typical American secondary school curriculum. Is the Academy analyzing this curriculum's effectiveness or experimenting with different curricula?
So at Khan Academy proper, I mean, there's two lines of attack, so to speak. One is, where is the market? And this is, hey, kids are taking calculus. Now we could, and we have statistics as well, but we could debate on the utility of calculus versus statistics versus something else, but that is just what students are learning, and it's a beautiful subject, and we like creating that content. With that said, we are also creating other content that is, I guess, broader or maybe more cross-domain. And the other thing that we're doing is you mentioned kind of some of these labs we're doing and we're piloting with schools. That is more open lens, where when we're working with these physical schools, we're trying to see, well, if we could reboot everything.
But you have all these constraints on these schools. So you have to come up with a school that has the ability to grant a degree against a very different curriculum. Is that possible?
Well, the thing, there's nothing. It's actually interesting. Is a lot of the constraints are, if you're a public or charter school, yes, there's absolute. I mean, there's obviously funding constraints, and then there's a lot of constraints on time in the classroom, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of degree, in terms of giving a high school credential, it's fairly open-ended. I mean, homeschoolers, once again, you could, as long as your child learns to write well, performs well on things like the SAT, AP tests, and has a portfolio of interesting experiences, they can compete or outcompete some of the students who are going to traditional schools.
Yes, ma'am.
This is about content also. I'm a software engineer and I study math, so my kids are getting a lot of math and coding at home. So we were interested in, I think they're not learning much about writing and critical thinking. So I was like, well, let's go on Khan since you're supposed to be doing that anyway for school, but never do. And we looked up anything around the humanities, and we loved the only thing we found, which was the crash course in modern history, which probably isn't for 9-year-olds.
No, there's like,
but he loves it, and we
yes.
stop it. It's really funny, really. And you have to pause it every 10 seconds, and we talk about it, and think about exercise, fun things to do around it, like invent your own cuneiform. But I just think there's this whole gap, and this is important for kids from all levels of socioeconomic status, about reading something and thinking about it and writing. And I know writing is really hard to do in any automated fashion, but I'm just curious about any of your thoughts around humanities and how you could extend some of this work to the humanities.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in our mission. It's to eventually get to that. And for us, it's weighing that and the importance of reading comprehension, writing, humanities broadly, to what we're capable to do using existing tools. But yeah, I imagine even something like writing could actually be very similar to our computer science. There's actually a lot more commonality between something like programming and writing than most people normally associate. You're creating something from scratch. There's kind of a subjective, open-ended aspect to it. So could imagine something like that, peer review. You're right, on the video side right now, we're very limited. We have a little bit of history stuff.
Eventually machine intelligence can read the paragraphs and sort of make recommendations.
There's people, yeah. I mean, there's definitely, I know the folks at edX are, they say, I haven't tested it to see how good it is, but there's already.
But you would start with review by other humans.
I actually think
and
that
eventually review by
I actually think the peer review is a double benefit, because I think critically reviewing other people's work is actually probably even more valuable than having it your
But we talked some time ago that you were interested in history and also religion, right?
Yeah, that was your idea.
and because those are subjects which are they're vast subjects,
yes.
And they're relatively structurable.
There's a market,
right?
There's a yeah, well, in history, we've already started a lot, and actually, we have a partnership with the Aspen Institute where we're starting to get. I mean, we literally, Justice Kennedy has made a few videos for us already, so that's just kind of ramping up, and we hope to have a lot more of that. We actually have a fairly large art history collection, and this was just kind of one of these random, opportunistic things that we did. These two art historians were doing this incredible collection of videos And then we reached out to them and we did what we call a not-for-profit merger. We gave them jobs. And Beth and Stephen have been incredible. And actually, they are two of the primary voices behind the Google Art Project as well. So that's another point of intersection between us. So yes, our goal, the good thing is we now feel that we're getting pretty close to, in K through 12, I would say even K through 14, math and science. In the next year or two, we're getting, it's pretty filled out now. So we're just starting to kind of start thinking about, well, we can start to invest significantly in some of these other domains.
Thanks.
Another question. Many people coming online today for the first time are doing so through smartphones on slow cellular networks. What are you doing to bring your content and learning tools to these internet users?
Yeah, and we've been having a lot of interesting conversations. I mean, Matt's really the expert here, and we have some other folks who've been thinking deeply about it. There are high-tech solutions. For any of y'all who've seen the videos, we've even thought about creating a new compression algorithm for these videos, because in a lot of ways, just using a MPEG or whatever. I mean, if you just literally record where the mouse is and stuff, you could probably compress our entire library down to under a gig. In which case, you could just bundle them with the phone. You wouldn't even necessarily need a. And then the actual data for did you get a question or right or wrong? That's very lightweight data, and that could even be batched or whatever else. So there's stuff like that. There's, the good thing is, y'all are working on, and other people working on accessibility.
Well, as an example, you could just use an SD card.
You could use an SD card. Memory is
get a donor to give you money for SD cards, just hand them out.
If in 5 or 10 years, the default phone has, 20 gigabytes of, 16 gigabytes of memory, you could just bundle the content. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Vincent Scheib. I work on Chrome. I'm also a parent. I'm just taking some young children and getting them started on Khan Academy, and it makes me wonder about children who are in a daily curriculum that isn't planning for Khan Academy, who then have children at home who are enthused about it and kind of racing ahead on all this subject material. I'm already seeing a divergence, right? And I'm already seeing that in the classroom, they're saying, well, I've sort of covered this material already. Do you know what is happening with the population that's out there in this kind of an environment, and what to expect, or what to do with that, right?
Well, I think that goes, to some degree, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but hopefully it creates some of these pressures in a very healthy way, that if the children are racing ahead, and then the teacher might say, well, what other ways can I cater to the student without, and hopefully, there's other students who are actually behind where I'm. There's actually studies that the average teacher is teaching to the 23rd percentile. And you might say, oh, that's great, that, okay, 23%, it actually tells you it's only catering to 1% of the students, because 22% are going to be lost, and then the remainder are going to be bored. It's only 1% are going to be like, wow, the teacher knows exactly what's going on in my brain.
Is it really that bad?
It's the 23rd. That's the
not even I've read. Not even to the midpoint.
It's to the 23rd percentile, which kind of makes sense.
It supports your point.
Which the teacher, if you see the students who are struggling, no one wants to leave behind students, and so there's obviously more kind of emotional empathy.
So it's the Prussian model.
It's the Prussian model, and so if you have students at either end of the spectrum, and we've even seen it that the student that you think is at this end of the spectrum, if you let them remediate their gaps and move at their own pace, a few months later they might be at this end of the spectrum.
You actually had a result that was quite interesting, where Khan Academy was pretty good for well-to-do and average sort of kids, but the gains were phenomenal for students who had been lost, right? The ones that had been told they're no good at it. And when they would hit these blocks, and then you in fact gave a speech at Google some years ago on the subject, that when they would get blocked, if you unblocked them, you had data that showed that they would eventually catch up and perhaps surpass the median and upper student.
Yeah, and, I saw it frankly with Nadia. She went from being a remedial student to a student who a year later was taking literally university courses at the University of New Orleans. The first year that we worked with Los Altos, the first pilot, some were kind of normal 5th grade classes, but we worked with a couple of, for lack of a better word, remedial 7th grade classes. And we were afraid of what might happen there, but we actually saw, and they had never seen this before. One of the students actually jumped into an advanced math class. Usually the remedial class is like your intellectual graveyard. You're kind of behind and you'll stay behind. But because that student was able to fill their gaps.
And if you can combine that with your work on persistence, grit, sort of learning,
the mindset,
you could actually completely change the mindset of people who have been, quote, written off.
That's a lot of what we're trying to think about as a team is, as you know, in our product, in everything we do, can we do little interventions? Can we, and even now, if you use our website or the mobile app, you get these little, you know, your brain is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And these are literally statements that were engineered by folks like Carol Dweck, which have shown, and we've even seen it on our own platform, that actually move the dial, people engage more.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, my name's Adrian. So one of I don't know much about education, but I've been reading some of the kind of Gates Foundation research on education. One of the things that they found, at least my interpretation of it, was that in-classroom technology typically gets a lift of, 10%, 20%, but really the majority of the lift comes from either the home life or, ironically, the back office technology. And this is why you see startups like AltSchool or SEP's startup trying to fully integrate the school. And I'm wondering, when you guys are seeing these effects on kids, are you mostly seeing them in kind of the rich kids where their families are pretty much like already on top of it, they see some problem and they're going to go look for some additional support for the kid? Or are you finding this lift in the kids that honestly were lost and don't have a strong home life, et cetera?
I'd say both. Obviously a lot of the especially even the early adopters, these were the folks that read the news stories that were writing about us, et cetera, and they had internet access and broadband and all of that. And so that might have been some of the former groups. But a lot of what we've seen, Oakland Unity, which is on one of those leaderboards, this was a school, literally, if you visit it, it doesn't feel like the Bay Area, much less the US. It really is a very underserved school, but they have incredible teachers there. And they literally went from the 22nd percentile 4 years ago to the 99.7th percentile. And it was just on a very simple principle. Their teacher, Peter McIntosh, saw that he had ninth graders, and this isn't any judgment on the kids' intelligence, but they just didn't know their multiplication tables. And why should I pretend to teach algebra to kids if they don't know their multiplication tables? Let them remediate at their own time and pace. And those same students, let them learn their multiplication tables. They can then race ahead and more likely reach their potential. So it is, I think we have a lot of work to do. And in fact, to the previous question, I think that's something that I would love to, and we're already doing it with this LearnStorm, work more with Google of how do we make sure that we reach and have access to the kids who need it most.
In America today, there's a growth boom, and there are many, many jobs that are unfulfilled, and because they can't get the people who are capable of doing it. If you talk to colleges, the colleges talk about how many of the students are coming in needing remedial work in order to operate in freshman year in college. So we know we have a very, very deep problem in the area that Adrian is talking about.
Great, thanks.
Let me, another question from our virtual audience. Education, quote, for free, for everyone, forever. That's a great mission. How do Khan Academy employees get paid? Are all expenses covered through donations? Do you believe that model is infinitely sustainable?
Very good question. And other ways that Google could help. No, I'm actually not kidding. But we round off error. Anyway, no. So the simple answer is, yeah. We're primarily philanthropically funded, and the lucky thing is we have a board that understands what it means to hire great talent in a place like the Bay Area. And so we obviously can't give stock options. We joke everyone gets the same stock option package I have.
And in fact, you have some ex-Googlers who have come over to work for you.
We do. We have a bunch, most famously Craig, who's, I called him our Harry Seldon because I'm always like, he's like my oracle.
Craig was employee number 3, I believe, at Google, and retired to work with Sal to do many of the algorithms that you're
and make bread. And
which is how he started at Google.
Yes, but yeah, so I think that's we're not for profit, but we are able to compensate people competitively, which is I think which we're finding is working.
So, but the general answer is you need fundraising and you need eventually bigger and bigger amounts.
Yeah, and our the question cited our mission or a synopsis of our mission. We want to be free forever, and so. But we think that we've inadvertently found ourselves building a brand in this very large space. So we think there might be ways through brand partnerships or whatever else. Some of y'all might have seen some of these ads with Bank of America and other folks, where we might be able to find other sources of revenue that in no way make us compromise the free or the non-commerciality.
Go ahead, yes, sir.
So you guys are helping people learn at their own pace really well. Like kids are have the tools to do that. But American schools, there's a lot of social and cultural reasons why people wouldn't want to move at their own pace, like you were talking about, kind of the factory model. you know, if a kid like is behind in a specific subject, they might get held back. If they're doing too well and they skip, then they're with people who they're different ages with. What's your vision for how classrooms will look when people are really given the ability to learn at their own pace? And how do we destigmatize, for kids especially, like making them want to learn at their own pace?
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that hits the crux of it. I think a lot of it, I mean, some of this mindset work that we're working on, there's actually, you know, if you look at the ed literature, it's amazing how much actionable literature there is around the mindset growth, mindset perseverance. So I think there's a lot of stuff around that. But, you know, the ideal is to do a first principles reboot of what is possible. You know, we have we have a little mini lab school downstairs from our offices, literally, where we're trying some of this stuff, where we're doing mixed age. You know, as soon as it's mixed age, then a lot of the stigma of going ahead or behind, and it's okay if you're in math and you're 5, but you're operating at a 3rd grade level, but you're reading at a kindergarten level. It's completely cool in that world. And then you get all the benefit of the mentorship. One of the reasons why I think a lot of, you have, for lack of a word, a broken culture in a lot of schools is it is a very unnatural environment. It literally is setting up a Lord of the Flies environment where you have, you know, a bunch of 13-year-olds and they define all of the norms. While most of human evolution, we were in our tribe, we were with our cousins, we were learning from people slightly older, and we were mentoring. Even when we were 9 or 10 years old, we were mentoring people who were slightly younger than us. And I think that responsibility, it gives you more agency, it gives you an outlet for a lot of your energy, it makes you mature faster. And you know, frankly, we've already started to see a little bit of that.
Do you see a path to get there?
You know, it's a hard question. I think the best we can do is ourselves and work with a bunch of partners to create a lot of examples of this. Use our soapbox to disseminate it as much as possible, and hope more. And I think we have a very real shot that in the next 10 or 15 years, some of what we're talking about, in fact, a lot of it has even changed in the last 5, 10 years, but the next 10 or 15 years, if you ask a random person on the street, what is the best practice? Just like right now, if you say, what's a sign of a good school? They might say, oh, they teach AP classes. But if in 5 or 10 years they say, what is the best practice? People say, oh, class is not lecture-based. Students are allowed to learn at their own pace. It's a mastery-based model. Significant amount of class days building your portfolio of creative projects. There's peer-to-peer learning and peer review. And it's mixed age so that you can mentor others. You know, if that becomes people's mantra, I think and I think it will in the next 10 years.
We have a few more questions and we'll finish up. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Evan Rappaport. I'm a product manager at Google X, and I've been really lucky in my life to have some amazing mentors who have helped me, not necessarily with academic learning, but with helping to guide me in my career so I could be happy and work here at Google. So I give a lot of mentoring advice to students, and I try to give back, but I don't find that even students with a really good academic history have any mentoring on their career. So what could Khan Academy do to sort of help people be happier in life and their careers, not just in academics?
Yeah, you know, there's some lightweight things we could do, which I think are actually will have an impact, and then there's some more intense things. You know, one is literally like interviews with people. You know, one of the best things, I had an older sister who kind of navigated the system ahead of me, and if you have interviews with folks like yourself or people at all different age levels, like how did you navigate it? What were your insecurities? And people from every gender, ethnicity, race, income level. So you can find people you identify with, but they're kind of virtually giving you ways that you can navigate the system. We've already started that a little bit. We started this whole college access thing. It's on Khan Academy. That was a start, but I can imagine this across all kind of life things. Most people don't even know half of the careers that exist out there, that especially these high growth careers.
How did you?
How did you?
How did you deal with this?
And then there's other things that, once again, it's still pie in the sky, but the technology exists where you can pair people up. You know, you could have mentors that you virtually find. I know I think there's a project called Grandparents in the Cloud or something like that, where it's literally you get a grandparent on demand. But that's a good.
Okay,
yeah.
Next question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Jennifer, we'll have you be the last question.
Hi, Sal. I have a brief question. So I've thought a little bit about connectivity in rural areas and how you can get your content there. One of the things I thought of was, have you considered using broadcast medium to kind of publish the content that you have? When I thought about this, I was actually working a little bit in public healthcare in those areas. And when I think of Khan Academy, a lot of the video content and also the HTML content, I think, can actually just be pushed down because it's just push-based information. It's only the feedback of interactiveness that's actually pull-based that has to be sent back to the cloud. And have you considered using broadcast medium? Because that just totally avoids the problem of having internet connectivity in these places.
Yeah, no, I think there's some partners that have started doing that, and we're very open to it. It's still obviously a suboptimal because even for something like videos, we would want someone to be able to pull and pause and, hey, I already know that, let me watch this or let me review that. But yeah, you're right. I think that's something that could happen today. We actually there's one of our ex-interns has started this thing called KA Lite, which is a completely offline Raspberry Pi based Khan Academy. So yeah, I think all of these permutations, but my hope is that in the next 10 or 15 years, and hopefully Google plays a big role here, is that a lot of the accessibility and device issues are actually going to be
And I hope
solved.
people in the room know that a Raspberry Pi is a phenomenally inexpensive computer that is often used for early learning and so forth. Google has been a big sponsor of that through google.org. Thanks you.
A lot.
Jennifer?
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I manage our ocean program. So I just had a question about traditional, a lot of ocean information isn't covered in current curriculum standards, and do you ever kind of push that the testing platforms include additional information about the oceans and climate and coral reefs?
Oh, like really oceans? I thought it was some acronym for something.
There is that, but no, it's different. Real ocean. Yeah.
70% of the Earth is oceans.
I know that, but you guys are
the largest amount of
you guys have
biodiversity
ocean
is
strategy?
in the ocean.
But you
We
guys-
are planning on connecting the fish to the internet.
There you go. No,
The series, Jennifer and her team have built a number of things, including Google Ocean, and so you can, for example, go visit shipwrecks underneath visually.
Really?
They're doing a tremendous amount of mapping. They called up the Navy and convinced the Navy to give us all the maps of the ocean and so forth.
Wow.
So
okay, so that's exciting.
So the answer is yes, you're going to do a new module based on this new knowledge.
Yeah, well, the simple answer is we do have partners, and actually we have a little bit of, we've already started, we have a partner, Cal Academy of Sciences has started to do some stuff around the oceans and ecosystems and things like that. And I think, we're always happy to partner with folks and see if we can put more content out there.
Thank you.
I think everybody sees why I like to work with him.
I like to work with you.
That's not the point. If you think about people who are going to have an impact on the world, I would argue Larry and Sergey will have had that impact, but I will argue that Sal Khan will have it as well. The reach and the impact that he and his vision and the team he has assembled is a Google-level scale, world-scale impact. I know of no other group that has the kind of engineering possibilities and the scale in front of it as your organization. It is a testament to you as a computer scientist, failed hedge fund manager, now educator to the world.
I didn't fail.
You just got bored.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Thank you very, very much for coming.